My goal is to make a swatch. Pretty much got stuff cleared off, so I'm going to put the camera in its holder and get to it. I'm Tracy from Tracy KM Designs, and I make things the True Tracy way. What does that mean? Usually that I seem to make things harder for myself by trying to make them easier. Kind of like Murphy's Law. Well, it's hitting me today as well. I want to set up my table. I needed to move my light because the overhead light is flickering. I don't know if you can see that. So I wanted to plug in my extra light, and I discovered that my tool holder is totally broken. Like, how does that happen? It has sat on my table here forever. Nobody else uses this but me. So now I have to find a new place for all my tools. Oh well, let's just move on. I have this yarn, the crochet swatch, and I want to make the same sweater that I've been crocheting, all about that draped tank top, but I want to make it on my knitting machine. I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to get the tension tight enough on the LK150. I'm going to try. My Singer standard gauge needs a new sponge bar, so it's kind of out of commission right now. I've got to unravel my swatch, and because this is what my ball looks like, I'm also going to wind it up on my ball winder. Let's see how that goes. Give it a try and see how it goes. Tension on the yarn. And immediately the ball falls off the chair. It's rolling around on the floor, and I'm sure any moment now it's going to wrap itself around the chair, so I'm going to stop. See if I can find a box to put it in. You can't see it, but now it's in a box where it can bounce around to its heart content. I love this winder. It really wants to jump out of the box. Please work, please work, please work. Nope. As soon as I paused it, it did this. Okay. And yep. Come on, just a little bit more. There we go. A little bit there. Now I can shut it off. Yeah, I got this. We'll fix that in a moment. Whew. All done. I'm going to use the instructions on how to knit a garment on page 28 of the manual. This gives you the instructions on how many needles to cast on, but I will actually go back to the cast on section and start with that. Thread it up. Oh, it feels so thin for this machine. I want to do it by the book in case you have the book and want to know how to do it. Should have started with carriage over here as per page 9. Bring 25 stitches all forward. Russell levers on the triangle and side levers on the 2. Move the carriage to the right, then return it to the left. Push every other needle back to a position. Then thread up the tension mast. I'm going to turn this right down to 1, and we'll see how that feels. Run it across. Not bad. A little clip there. The clip hold. Cast on comb. Center that at 0. Make sure you're not catching further than you need to on the right. If these guys at the end get a little bit smaller, you can push the hook forward. Return the needles in A position to B. All right, make sure you get the one at the far end. That's number 25 on that side. Set the row counter to 0 and move the carriage at an even speed. That looks good. And we're gonna do about 3 to 4 centimeters. And I took the outside of the ball instead of the inside. I had a few stitches that it missed for some reason on this row. I think it's time to add some weight, or the carriage may be set too tight. I'm just pushing the needle butt forward so the loop goes behind it. Pick up the loop, put it in the hook, and pull through. Yeah, I did that. All right, I'm going to start with putting some weight on. And I'm going to just move this up to 2. First row after you change tension can give you trouble. So just work those ones by hand. Okay. Still skipping. Skip 3 stitches here in a row. One in the middle, one over here, and there's one over here. It split the yarn, so I've got to put the hook, transfer tool in the hook, get the whole shebang back in the hook, bring it forward, bring the loop into the hook. There we go. All right, I'm gonna move it up to 3 and see if that makes it feel better. Still missing a lot of stitches. Ugh, I split that one. This yarn is actually a little bit thicker than I thought it was. I'm not going to be able to reknit all the stitches that it missed because there's just too many. I'm going to put some weight on. I mean, this is real life, right? Like, if I had sat down here and said, this is how you knit a swatch, boo, 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 edit out all the rough spots, you won't get to see real life and yourself. So I'm showing you what actually happens when you use a knitting machine. Okay, I'm going to move it up to 4 and see how it feels this time. Okay, do you want to see how to take the carriage off the bed when it gets stuck? See this? Bring it towards the front, give it a wiggle, lift it up, bring it over to the side. And now I am going to make sure all the stitches are in the loops because some of them aren't. Totally not in the loop, so I'm going to rip out this row as well. And here it goes. Sometimes that end one you just have to watch when you're ripping out. Making sure that the next row down is in the needles here. The stitch below didn't get knit, so I'm going to fix that up as well. Put it in the thing, and this one. Stitch needs to go back the hook. This one's behind the hook, so I'm going to back the hook again. Same with this one. It's behind the hook. It needs to be in the hook in order to rip out. This one here is behind the hook. It needs to go into the hook. These two are behind the hook. I'm going to put in. This one needs to go in, etc. Into the hook, then I knit. Into the hook, then I knit. Into the hook, then I knit. This one got split. Oh, this one's real low as well. No, it's not. Oh, fix that. Into the hook. Into. And okay. Pull this down. I wonder if the yarn touches fully tight. I have stitches. Everything has a split bubble for it. Okay. We're on T5. Is it going to work? Tighten up the loose end. Still feels a little on the tight side. Only one skip stitch. Could live with one because maybe it was just, it had split the stitch before and I hadn't fixed it well enough. Oh, that row felt better. As you use your knitting machine, you will start to feel how it likes the yarn or doesn't like the yarn. And immediately I can tell it's feeling better about it. But to me, the stitches just look a little loose. So I'm actually going to do a few rows first. Make sure they're all knitting well. I don't have my upper tension set properly. So I'm just trying to watch on the ends. Okay. Now that my machine remembers how to knit, I'm going to move the tension down again. Try number 4. That's feeling good. This is why it's better to take from the inner part of the ball, because it will just unwind much easier. The yarn itself is going to have the drape. I don't need to knit it too loose. I knit a few rows, and I'm going to do something so that when I come back to this swatch, I will know what gauge I knitted at. I'm working on tension 4, so I am going to make 4 eyelets by moving over 4 stitches to their neighbors. 1, 2, 3, 4. That will give me 4 eyelets, and I'll know that it's T4. And then if I get to the end of the swatch and I want to do T3 as well, I'll mark that one with 3 eyelets. "17 rows, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so that was step 4. Step 5, push both 16th needles from center 0 to D position and place a piece of contrasting yarn. Okay, so there's a 10 mark, 15 mark, that's 16, 10, 15, that's 16. All right, push these ones back to B position by hand. So basically you're knitting that stitch. I also recommend, if you can, give it a bit of extra weight. This is where you're going to measure in between if you have the special ruler. If you don't have the special ruler, I'll show you anyway what you can do. It says to knit another 20 rows of whatever your stitches that you're knitting your swatch in. I'm still having some troubles with this one needle that wants to sometimes not knit off properly. I gave it a bit of oil. Not sure if that's helped. I might just have to switch it out. Step 7, thread contrast yarn and knit 2 rows and stocking that. One thing to watch out for, if you're so focused on one stitch that's been giving you trouble, don't forget to pay attention to your ends. Right? You got to know when to move your weights up as well. Sometimes you might hyper focus on one misbehaving stitch, and then next thing you know, boop, the ends fall off because you haven't been paying attention to them. That's good enough for me. I'm going to unthread this and repeat the process using T3. So move down to T3, knit 2 rows to separate the sections. Just fixing this one stitch. Waist yarn, just make sure it's high contrast and about the same weight as your main yarn. Leftovers from projects, thrift shops, don't bother with good yarn. It's called waste yarn for a reason. Now I'm going to repeat the whole thing. I'm going to knit a few rows, then do my eyelets. You might think you'd remember what tensions you used, but things happen. Oh, it's not as happy on T3. This kind of like a chain knit type of yarn, not plied. And sometimes it catches on one of the thin little strands. It doesn't get the whole loop through. Okay, I'm going to make 3 eyelets over here. 3. Line those up. And then keep going on my 20 rows. Well, I only got to 13 rows of T3 knitted. And I'm getting more and more stitches now that are just not knitting properly. Sometimes it catches part of the yarn and doesn't form the stitch properly. Others, it's just missing the whole section. And even to knit the next row is going to be a real pain in the butt because there's so many skipped or partially made stitches. So I'm just going to do what I can here and just hope that T4 works on this swatch and that I like the fabric that it gives me. I don't mind keeping an eye on one needle that's not behaving, but this many, it's much of a nuisance. I'd rather just crochet it and deal with having little blobs of color instead of nice stripes. Yeah, it is telling me it's not happy at T3. So now that I know that, I'm just going to go up to something large and knit a few rows so I can get it off the machine. I think that's probably enough. Take off all the weight. I'm not going to cut my yarn because I'm too frugal. I'm just going to take it out of the holder, bring it forward so it doesn't get caught. Oh yeah, and this is the time where some of the stitches decide they want to actually knit and stay on. So I'm going to take this over to the table and we'll have a look at it. This pink beige one is my mystery swatch that I knit before. This is the one that we just made. You cannot measure it yet. When you take an item off the knitting machine, it's been stretched out this way and pulled down with weights. So you should always take it and give it a few little tugs to help get the stitches the way that they should be. And even still, I would not recommend measuring it yet because it needs to rest a little bit. This big section, as seen by the 4 eyelets, is the T4 that I'm hoping works nicely for my sweater. And I think it will. Now that I see it like this, I don't think the stitches are too far apart at all. And it still has really nice drape. Yeah, look at that. Oh, I'm getting excited. Got a million things to do right now. Family's coming over Friday night for dinner, getting ready to go on another trip. Exciting. But we want to measure using the little ruler in the book because we did that whole thing with the waste yarn. And like, you can see how bright the waste yarn is. But where the heck are those stitches that we marked? I can feel them. Okay. Oh, I used the beige. Wow. The beige was not contrasty enough. I'm going to leave this here for now. Just let it rest, chill, hang out, and I will come back in a little while and actually measure. I've let my swatch rest overnight, and now I've come back to measure it. I'm going to start with using the ruler that you can get for the LK150. It's a yellow ruler. I even wrote on mine mid-gauge to make it easier to find because I've got other ones in there as well. The instructions for using this are on page 29. You're going to start with the S end on the inside of your left marked stitch. Follow along one row as best you can. And then on the inside of the other marked stitch, you will determine that number. Now you might think this is 25, 26, 27, but nope, the numbers are going up this way. So that's actually 25, 24, 23. So I'm going to write that down. What that means is that there are 23 stitches for 10 centimeters or 4 inches. Of course, it couldn't be 24 to make it nice and easy for the math. Usually you would do it on the other side, but because the marked stitches kind of pulled through, that'd be easier to do it on this side. To find your rows, flip it over so you see the R. Line it up with the bottom of your waste yarn. In fact, this time I am going to turn it over. Follow it down one column of stitches, and to the top of the other waste yarn, it reads 29 rows. So I know I have 29 rows. And of course, it couldn't be 30, could it? Or even 28. It had to be 29. If you want to do it with a ruler, let's see how this compares. Now, those markers weren't necessarily 4 inches across. That is what the ruler does some fancy math to figure out for you. because if you remember, we marked 16 and 16, I believe it was. So let's just see what we can get by using a ruler. I'm going to line it up very carefully along one row. And kind of hard with this multicolor yarn because the colors shift and it's like, is that this row or that row? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So I got 25 stitches. Interesting. There's a little bit of variation, so you could always measure it more than once. And for rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Now, could it be that my ruler's not right? Well, our rows are right. Could it be that I didn't use the yellow ruler quite right? Possible. Let's compare. These are my two most popular rulers. Let's see. Yep, they are a tiny smidge off there, but for a garment, I don't think that's going to matter. Let's try measuring it with this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I blinked. 21, 22, 22, 23, 24, 25. I got 25 there again. I'm going to take the average of those. 23 versus 25, and I'm going to make it 24. And that way I can divide it by 4 and find my stitches per inch, which will be 6 stitches. Now for the rows, 29 divided by 4. Really, I could just do 28, but let's do this properly. 7.25. Now that matters because that quarter of a row over 7 times 4, 28 rows, you know, that it adds up. And on the machine, you can't just hold it up to your body and see how it fits. I will work with 7.25 and round it as I'm going as needed. Because I'm seaming this, I have to know from the start how much is my front and how much is my back. If I was doing it in the round, it wouldn't matter until I get to the split. But here I need to know. Front piece, I determined I wanted it 19 inches. So ignore that, 17 and a half. 19 inches times 6 stitches per inch. 19 times 6, 114. Now typically, this was going to be something kind of snug. I'd want to add 2 stitches for seaming. So I'm going to do that just to be on the safe side. In the back, I had determined I only needed it 16 inches. Remember, my back is smaller than my front. So 16 inches times 6, 96 stitches. Easy peasy, eh? Now I need it to know how tall it was to the split. I have 13 inches here, and then I sewed about an inch. So I'm going to say 14 inches. That's going to be the same on the front and back because it's below the bust. 14 inches times 7.25 equals 101.5. Now, obviously, I can't do half a row, so I'm going to round that down to 101, maybe round it up to 102. On the back, I had decided I wanted to take it in a little bit, only about an inch on each side. Instead of just casting off 6 stitches, remember we have 6 stitches per inch, I'm going to decrease those over a few rows to give a little bit nicer shaping there. I don't need to do it on the front because of the way this drapes. I will just match up the shoulder points and it will just give it probably a little bit more drape. And above the armhole, I wrote down 10 inches. I know 7.25 times 10 is 7250 or 72.5 rows. I can't do a 0.5 row, I know. So I'll probably just stick it at 72. Because I'm rounding down, I might actually round this one up to 102. And that will keep the total rows the same. Now I also have to figure out how am I going to get that extra width at the top. 32 rows, 32 inches. 32 inches. And I'm starting with 19 inches. So what is that? 32 minus 19 equals a gain of 13 inches, which equals times 6, 78 stitches. Now I got a little bit of a problem here. It's called the LK150 because it has 150 stitches. And 116 plus 178, well, I don't have to be an engineer to know that's going to be more than 150. There's a couple things that could be done. You could work on half, increase up to where you run out of stitches, and then split it and then seam it when you're done. However, because of the way this folds over, I don't think I want to do that because you would see the seam. You could split it into 3, basically where the shoulder, 5 inches here, 5 inches here, and see if you could do it like that, because those seams probably wouldn't show. Or you could knit it as far as you can and then knit the rest by hand. Or knit it as far as you can and then crochet the rest in a lacy kind of stitch. Ooh, that sounds intriguing. Interesting. I'm going to think about this a little bit more. Another thing I've been thinking about is the bottom. On the crochet version, you just added a row of single crochet around the bottom, which really didn't add much in the way of height, maybe 1/4 inch. But in stockinette, it's going to roll, and you need to decide, am I going to do a rib, maybe a mock rib? That will come out of this 14 inches. Am I going to crochet something after? My experience has been with trying to crochet a border after is that it tends to flip up anyway where the seam is. It doesn't roll, but it just flips because the tension is different between the knit and the crochet. Am I going to start it minus a bit of ribbing here? So maybe start 2 inches here and hand knit the ribbing after. That's typically what I do. I don't mind hand ribbing. I hate reforming that many stitches for a rib on the machine. I'd rather do the mock rib, I think is in the book, in which case you would need to add more and you knit the hem a little bit tighter. And the cool thing about doing a hem is that you can add a picot border. You can see I made a picot border. You start by doing an open cast on, slightly smaller tension. When you get to where you want your turn to be, you move every other stitch over. Knit the same amount but at your regular tension now. And then pick up the open cast on that you have. Knit a row, sometimes the tension 1 higher, and then continue on. It gives a nice little edge. Before committing to it, I would try a small sample. You can use your swatch to figure out if you want to do a crochet order, how it would look, how many stitches to do per inch, etc., etc. So that is basically how you can use this crochet pattern shape and make a knit pattern. And don't feel that I'm ripping off the original crochet design because you don't see that anywhere in here. This structure is a pretty typical normal shape. I have sewing patterns that are just like this. And in fact, I could use a sewing pattern in the exact same way. Measure it, figure out my gauge, and use that. I'm going to stop here because I'm having a dinner party tomorrow night and I have some other work that I have to get done. But I hope you've learned a little bit from this mini lesson on converting patterns. You don't always have to start from scratch. And if you already have a pattern library, there are ways to adapt things. I'm going to do a little bit more thought on this, maybe doing the crochet at the top. So that would also give me something to do by hand, and I like having something. That's all for today. I don't expect I'm going to get a whole lot done on it next week because we're going away again after next week, so I need to do some work for that, but I'll see what I can do. Sneak on down to my basement here. I'll see you in the next one.